Що ж, шановні колеги, шановні студенти, шановні учасники заходу, ми щиро раді вітати вас сьогодні під час другого дня нашої, так би мовити, естафети правничих шкіл на нашій події. І ми сьогодні з вами будемо мати не лекцію, а, сподіваюся, цікаву дискусію. І для того, щоб розпочати, я би хотіла представити нашу аудиторію і представити нашого шановного гостя. Отже, сьогодні ми будемо з вами обговорювати тематику підтримки парламентом Литви України на шляху до демократії і захисту нашого суверенітету і всієї європейської нації. І нашим почесним гостем є сьогодні Паулюс Саударґас, який є віце-спікером Сеймасу Литовської Республіки. Він є дуже сильним прихильником України з першого дня не тільки повномасштабного вторгнення, а і задовго до цього. Його дії є просто неоціненними, і вони стосуються не тільки загальнолитовської підтримки, вони стосуються всієї європейської підтримки. Яким чином це відбувається, ми будемо сьогодні більш докладно говорити. І перш ніж розпочати наш захід, я би хотіла дуже подякувати посольству України у Литві, а особливо Лесі Рожак, яка своїм внеском і допомогою взагалі зробила все те, щоб ця зустріч стала сьогодні можливою. Що ж, я бажаю нам всім приємної зустрічі і вітальне слово хочу передати заступниці директорки юридичного інституту Світлані Задерейко. Пані Світлано, будь ласка, вам слово.
Дякую, пані Євгенія, за надане слово. Вітаю всіх учасників. Як пані Євгенія зазначила, так, дійсно, цього року наш інститут приймає участь у всеукраїнській ініціативі «Незламні правничі школи». До цієї ініціативи долучилося більше, ніж 30 навчальних закладів з усієї куточки нашої країни. І це другий рік, третій рік повномасштабного вторгнення. Це вчергове доводить, наскільки українська нація є незламною і як вона прагне демократичних змін. Ми розуміємо, що саме розвиток юридичної науки, освіти є одним із рушійних важелів наших інтеграційних прагнень і подальших демократичних змін в Україні. І в межах цього всеукраїнського заходу цього тижню наш навчальний заклад є приймаючою стороною, і нам дуже приємно, що сьогодні в рамках цього заходу ми будемо говорити про підтримку України міжнародною спільнотою, а зокрема Республіки Литви, з одним з найбільших прихильників і без перебільшень, можу сказати, нашим другом України Паулюсом Саударгасом, який погодився поспілкуватися з нашими студентами, за що ми безмежно вдячні за таку можливість і за таку ініціативу. З першого дня повномасштабного вторгнення ми, українці, відчували активну підтримку Литви. Це невелика країна з безмежно сміливими людьми, політиками, які не боялися з перших днів називати речі своїми іменами, відкрито засуджувати агресію Росії, не пом'якшуючи контексту ні в якій мірі. І ті резолюції, за які голосувала Литва, які ухвалювали, вони також ставали величезним поштовхом для того, щоб показати приклад європейській спільноті і мала місце ця загальноєвропейська підтримка. Щиро дякуємо вам, пане Паулюс Саударґас, за те, що ви знайшли час зустрітися з нами. І щоб не займати багато часу, я вітаю всіх наших учасників з такою можливістю і з приємністю передаю вам слово.
Дякую, пані Світлано, за вашу промову. І зараз я переходжу на англійську мову, англійський канал, а всіх запрошую, кому потрібно, перейти на українську. І зараз, хвилиночку. Теж мені треба технічні моменти. Thank you very much for your speaking, and now with a great pleasure I want to invite for the welcome speeches Mr. Saudarghas, and then we will come to our discussion. Please, the floor is yours.
Дуже дякую. Добрий день. I'm sorry, my Ukrainian language is still not so on the high level, I do understand something, but still I cannot talk fluently. So I will speak in English. So dear participants, dear students, and professors, it is a great honor to speak to you today. As I was already introduced by your director, I'm a deputy speaker of the Parliament of Lithuania, which we call the Seimas, the Seimas. And Seimas, from the word, I mean, meaning is to come to meet in one place together, like gathering. So Seimas. But by the way, you can stop me at any place and ask a questions or some inputs of yourself. So don't hesitate to stop me if I will talk too long. So my career in the national politics started 16 years ago. In 2008, I was elected as a member of parliament and have been re-elected 3 times since then. The latest parliament elections were held in 2020 in Lithuania. Our party, which is Homeland Union Lithuanian Christian Democrats, won 50 seats, nearly a third of all the seats in the Seimas, which is quite achievement to our party in parliamentary elections. And after this victory, together with Freedom Party and the Liberal Movement, we formed a ruling coalition. The votes in 2020 Seimas elections have shown that our citizens have expectations for a new political culture and quality. The public gave us their trust to those political parties that respect democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. Forming such a coalition, we realized that Lithuania will be stronger when political forces manage to reach a durable agreement on the key matters of national and public development on international issues. Our goal was, and to this day is, to represent all Lithuanian citizens, rather than only those who voted for our political parties. And one more principle which describes our coalition and even our party specifically is that we are able to make an unpopular decisions. You can think that I'm only talking big, but it is the reality. The society and media in Lithuania recognizes this feature of ours. And sometimes we even argue between ourselves that maybe we could rather do or at least say some more popular things. But more often it happens that we do what we need to do, no matter how unpopular it is. That is why there is a perception in the society that we are good at tough times, that the crisis is our brand. So having in mind these few years, very tough, very geopolitically tough, so we understand that we are in the right place ruling Lithuania. So let me briefly tell you about how the Seimas is formed and how it functions. The Constitution of the Republic of Lithuania lays down that the Seimas consists of 141
Сеймасу входить 141 депутат, представник нації, які обираються на каденцію строком 4 роки. У нас є змішана система виборча в Литві, що означає, що 71
are elected in 71 single-member constituencies, and the remaining 70 members of parliament are elected in a one multi-member constituency by proportional representation. There is a 5% threshold applied to the parties, and the threshold of 7% applied for coalitions to pass to Seimas. what are the requirements for the candidates? Any citizen of the Republic of Lithuania who is at least 25 years of age on the election day and who permanently resides in Lithuania may stand for elections as member of the Seimas. Citizens of the Republic of Lithuania who on the election day are 18 years of age or more have the right to vote. The functions of the Seimas are similar to the functions of probably any parliament in the democratic world. It is first and foremost the legislative branch of government, responsible for debating, adopting, and passing laws. It also supervises the activities of the government, approves the state budget, and supervises its execution, establishes state taxes, ratifies international treaties of the Republic of Lithuania, and etc. So, for the task of legislation and parliamentary control, we have committees. And for resolving issues of narrower scope, we have commissions. There are 16 committees in total. For example, Committee on Budget and Finances, Committee on Economics, a Committee on European Affairs, Committee on National Security and Defense, and so on. I believe they are similar to those ones you have in Verkhovna Rada. What is important is that the society has the possibility to take an active part in the legislative procedure. An interested person has the possibility to present their proposals and observations in the committee. In order for the Seimas to function smoothly and effectively, there are two more bodies: the Conference of Chairs, which approves the work programs of the Seimas session and agendas of sitting, and the Board of the Seimas, which is responsible for organizational issues of the work of the Seimas. Now, let's hit to the topic of Lithuanian parliamentary support to Ukraine. I must emphasize, and I am sure it is well known to you, that our support for Ukraine against the aggressor, Russia, is unwavering. There are no other options than Ukraine's victory. We believe in the victory of Ukraine. By the way, especially after the decision of the Congress of the United States of America concerning $60 billion support for Ukraine, we all have even more hope for the future. Lithuania continues to provide all possible support to Ukraine, especially military support. Lithuania's total support for Ukraine reaches 1.5% of GDP, and thus Lithuania is among the leaders. Of course, we understand that in order to achieve victory, our big partners should also reach these indicators. We fully understand that without Ukraine's membership in the European Union, the project of a peaceful and prosperous Europe is not complete. Just as we cannot talk about European security without Ukraine's membership in NATO. One could ask why Lithuanians and Ukrainians are so close. We are not neighbors even, but we share common history. And in the pages of our tough and heroic history, we were on the same side. We share the same enemy all the time. Once we were one country. Later we suffered the permanent threat of the same Red Plague. From the Tsar times to Stalin bloody era till the murderer Putin, the non-democratic imperialistic neighbor is always besides. Together we fought in the forests, in the bunkers, as a partisans, as a forest brothers, against the Soviet occupation. Together we suffered Gulag. Hence we are brothers and sisters historically, and we will be. Having all this in mind, our task as politicians, as friends of Ukraine, is to mobilize political support for Ukraine. We actively encourage and we consistently call on both individual Western countries and the EU as a whole to provide support, especially military, to Ukraine in larger volumes and more urgently. We are determined to work in such a way that support for Ukraine increases. Since the beginning of wide-scale war against Ukraine, our parliament adopted a number of resolutions in support of Ukraine, as well as various national laws. Many of those resolutions were taken as examples by other parliaments. We have a constant communication with Verkhovna Rada, with the Embassy of Ukraine in Lithuania, and thus we have an opportunity to consult Ukrainians about our initiatives. During the processes of adoption of certain resolution and laws, we not only have consultations with our coalition partners, but also seek for support in the opposition. Our consistency creates results. Decisions regarding Ukraine are mostly adopted unanimously, and actually all the resolutions received unanimous support by our parliament members. These are several of most important ones. On the very first day of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, on the 24th of February 2022, we adopted a resolution of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania regarding the aggression of Russia and Belarus against Ukraine. 112 voted in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, for example, by which Lithuanian parliament condemns the military aggression of the Russian Federation and Belarus against Ukraine and the aspiration to overthrow the legally elected government of Ukraine, expresses strong support for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of its internationally recognized borders, calls on the allies to immediately grant Ukraine the status of a candidate country to the European Union and to provide an action plan for Ukraine's membership in NATO. So 2 years ago, it sounded quite not realistic at that time, and now we see the results that you are already on the path to European Union and I hopefully on the path to NATO. Next resolution. On the 3rd of March 2022, the Seimas adopted a resolution on granting candidate country status to Ukraine and the full membership of Ukraine in the European Union. Also, 123 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. By this resolution, the Seimas supports granting Ukraine the status of a candidate country of the European Union and its future full membership in the European Union. It invites all European Union members states to support Ukraine's aspiration to become a full member state of European Union as soon as possible. One more important resolution was passed on 22nd March 2022, a resolution on the termination of imports of energy resources from countries carrying out military aggression against Ukraine and the strengthening of Lithuania's energy system. Also, 170 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. The resolution invited the government of the Republic of Lithuania to propose solutions in order to stop the import and consumption of Russian oil and natural gas in the shortest possible time. I would like to remind you that actually Lithuania was the first country of the European Union to completely cut off Russian gas supply a month after the beginning of this war. On the 12th of April 2022, resolution concerning the condemnation of aggression and war crimes permitted by the Russian Federation in Ukraine was adopted. 134 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. The resolution strongly condemns the continued military aggression of the Russian Federation with the assistance of the Republic of Belarus, the committed and ongoing war crimes against sovereign Ukraine and its people, and crimes against humanity. One more very important resolution was adopted on the 10th of May 2022 on the recognition of the actions of the Russian Federation in Ukraine as genocide and the establishment of a special international criminal tribunal to investigate the crime of Russian aggression. 128 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Again, full unanimity in the parliament. The resolution was initiated by me. It not only recognizes the large-scale armed aggression against Ukraine by the armed forces of the Russian Federation and its political and military leadership as the genocide of the Ukrainian people, but also states that the Russian Federation, whose military forces deliberately and systematically chooses civilian objects as bombing targets, is a state that supports and carries out terrorism. So talking about denoting Russia as a terroristic state, we were the first parliament in the world to state that. And later, another parliaments took this as an example. So later, we adopted a lot of more resolutions concerning the full-scale invasion to Ukraine. Let me now briefly tell you about the interparliamentary cooperation between Lithuania and Ukraine. Taking into account the long-term international cooperation priorities of the Seimas approved by the Seimas board and the recommendations of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Seimas participates in the activities of international parliamentary organizations and assemblies represented by Seimas delegations in international parliamentary organizations and assemblies. The Seimas conducts its international politics through delegations in interparliamentary assemblies, groups of interparliamentary relations, foreign visits of the Speaker and the members of Parliament, and hosting the members of Parliament of partner countries. Since the beginning of bloody war in Ukraine, all the above-mentioned means of cooperation between Lithuania and Ukraine in parliamentary level have been actively used to this day, which are the Assembly of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania and Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the Assembly of Members of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania, the Sejm and Senate of the Republic of Poland, and the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Group for Interparliamentary Relations with Ukraine. Mutual visits of committee members, heads of the Seimas. Hosting of state officials from Ukraine. We appreciate the cooperation of our parliaments in all different formats: bilateral, trilateral, assemblies, interparliamentary relations groups, committees, and cooperations between the offices of parliaments. Besides, we have a wide range of events here in Seimas dedicated to Ukrainian case, keeping focus on Ukrainian question and raising awareness of Lithuanian society. I have in mind such events as exhibitions, press conferences, international forums, commemorations of remarkable dates of Ukraine. from the point of view of decisions of the Seimas, especially the board of Seimas, which is responsible for the office of the Seimas. On daily internal matters, we adopted a decision to allow the Ukrainian war refugees to live in the hotel of the Seimas, which is actually used to be used by the members of parliament only. Parliamentary visits. Last week, we hosted the delegation of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine from the National Security, Defense and Intelligence Committee, as well as the State Power, Local Self-Government, Regional Development and Urban Planning Committee. We discussed Ukraine's needs and assistance possibilities, issues of Ukraine's reconstruction. We are grateful that Ukrainians value Lithuania not only as their political partner, but also as an economic one. We don't have many useful minerals. Our lands are probably less fertile than Ukraine's, but Lithuania has niches where it is competitive. These are high technologies. We can already offer the world modern products in the fields of biotechnology, light technology, and digital technologies. So we are looking for and finding points of contact between Lithuania and Ukraine in the field of defense industry, of high-tech industry as well. The visit of the first deputy speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Oleksandr Kornienko, was on March 22, 2024. Also this year, in February 25, 27, Deputy Speaker Olena Kondratyuk also visited Lithuania. So we have really very close and intense relations between our parliaments, and of course governments and presidents are also in really deep contact. So probably from my side, here are some inputs, and if you have questions, so please ask me.
Thank you very much for this really interesting and so important with detailed speech, because it's really important to say and for people to know how much the Lithuania did for Ukraine and for the whole democracy in Europe. Because when we're talking about war in Ukraine, it's not a war in Ukraine. It's the war now in the territory of Ukraine, but we know what we are fighting for all together. And of course, for us as for Ukrainians, we have fully understanding that such strong support and all these resolutions, which you already, I wanted to actually to ask about it, about these resolutions about terrorism, genocide, and etc., which was the first in Europe and in the world mentioning these crucial crimes, their actual names, without like hiding some under some expressions. Yeah, now it's a lot of questions to the UN organizations why they are not so standby and etc. It could be discussed, but we all understand that with such support it's always possible to move forward and to be able to proceed this war and to win it at the end. And you were mentioning about parliamentary visits, like official ones, but I also want our participants and know about your personal visits, because you were one of the in the first delegation who visited Ukraine after the full-scale invasion with parliamentary visits. But it was not your only visit to Ukraine. You have visits before and after it. And my question is about your feeling about Ukraine when you had this visit and you brought military support and humanitarian support to the militaries, and what did you felt that moment? What did you saw, and did it impact your position to be more strong with support of Ukraine?
Thank you for your questions. First of all, I want to react about our parliamentary and support as a whole nation. Is it okay with the sound?
Yes, it's okay for us with the sound. I just want to know if you are chosen English channel, so the interpreter.
I have chosen English channel. Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Well, our country is a small one. We are a really small country. So, talking about support, probably we can be most helpful when talking about diplomatic support, political support, because, well, small country, small budget, we are giving what we have, but it's of course it will never be enough. But in the political corridors of Brussels or Washington, we can produce really loud voice as we have really experienced politicians. We have experienced politicians in the government, in the parliament, in the European Parliament, and we are used to work in this international arena because we fought for our own pathway to European Union, for our pathway to NATO, and we already went all these ways now, which Ukraine is beginning to walk. So on one hand, we can assist you in these corridors as in diplomatic and political way. On the other hand, we can share an experience of ours, and experience not only on the governmental level, but even in the local level. And we are also working on this issue. We are communicated cities to cities, local governments to share the experience, how we entered the European Union, what were the problems. We can say you can learn from our mistakes, and etc. etc. Now, going to your question about the visits, by the way, we visited as a delegation of the parliament, visited the Ukraine a week before the full-scale invasion on 16th of February, probably. So it was like a week to the full-scale invasion, and we visited Verkhovna Rada, and we already felt that, of course, there will be something big and something bad. And after the invasion, I was leading the first parliamentary delegation, probably, to visit Ukraine in the wartime. In the first visit, we've been to the border of Ukraine and Belarus, because at that time it was not so clear what the Belarusians will do, and there was possible threat that the Belarusian army will also invade Ukraine from that particular place that we just watched, how all the equipments and arrangements are being made in military point of view to withstand this possible invasions. But as we see now, the Lukashenko is trying to escape the direct involvement with his own forces. Later, we in 2 weeks we visited Kyiv. Kyiv was still surrounded by the Russian troops. It was some narrow corridor of a few kilometers, probably 10 kilometers, to go into the city. It was a logistical nightmare everywhere, of course. During few first months, it was a logistical, really tough situation in Ukraine, of course, because of all the war refugees and people, they were not sure about the future. Now it's much more stabilized the situation. So this unclearness about the future was really felt in the year. We met not only politicians, military, but ordinary people, and probably this was the most intense feeling, that everyone were not clear about their future. What will happen? Because, you know, in the first days of the war, we've got the military briefing, the briefing of our intelligence services, and they said that Kiev will last for 3 days. The intelligence of United States and Great Britain, they gave you that you will survive for 3 days. It's fine that they were mistaken. You were heroes, and you managed to withstand this much bigger military force till nowadays, and we see that they were wrong. They miscalculated somehow this. So, but of course, during the first months, this unclearness and this threat, the feelings about the future were really, the people were afraid. Later, I visited probably 8 times Ukraine during the war. I saw the evolution of the emotion of the society. At first, as I mentioned, it was really narrow and dark feelings, because nobody knew how long you will withstand. And later, when it turned to this counteroffensive, a lot of positive feelings came to arena, optimistic ones. But later, now you have more than 2 years already in the war. I think the tiredness comes. The society is tired of the war, and of course it's natural, probably. So all this development of feelings was also interesting from this point of view, to understand how the society is in the war state, in the state of war. It was a very, of course, very impressive feeling to touch the society who is like in the war state, because before I never felt like this, and now I saw the society who is in war and still trying to live on, trying to make economy, trying to take children to kindergarten or to school, or just to live on, because I think it's important for the country to move on, because you need to generate economy. In order to help military on the front line, you need to generate economy. Okay, I see more questions we have.
Yeah. You're like, with your answers, you're becoming more and more popular with questions. So thank you very much for this honest feedback and sharing your feelings, because you are absolutely right. The proceeding, it's the only way of surviving. So and to win the war, we need to be active, and we need to move forward without like non-stop. There is no possibility to win this war. And now I want to give a floor to one of our students. I see Anna raised hand, so probably she have question, and she have unique opportunity to ask it directly. Please, Anna, the floor is yours.
Yes. First of all, I thank you for such meaningful report and for the help that Lithuania provided to Ukraine. And my question is, how has Lithuanians' assistance to Ukraine influenced the domestic political situation in Lithuania? And also, how has Lithuanians' role in supporting Ukraine affected international cooperation and overall stability in the region?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think how the support influences the domestic politics. Well, we are growing up as a society, as a nation, because being helpful, being involved in in solutions of the problems, even international ones, gives us possibility to grow as a society. So I think this is the important thing. And during the past few years, our society faced another issues, another problems. For example, recently we faced the pandemics, the COVID pandemics, and also we saw in the society good examples that people volunteer, for example, to help the police, to help medics, and to help the government to deal with some kind of crisis. Then, for example, we had this migrant hybrid attack of Lukashenko with migrants from Africa, Asia, Iraq, Syria. They just invited them to fly to Minsk, and then his security officers pushed them through the border to Lithuania. And they end up, thousands of them, and end up in Lithuanian forests. And it was a problem, created problem, not natural one, not a phenomena that we were familiar with, because in Lithuania, well, a cold country, nobody comes, we have a very low percentage of migration always, and now we faced a new kind of problem. And we also saw how the society reacts. So I think during the crisis, we test our society. And I think that during these few years, the society grew. And when the war began in Ukraine, our society also, not only government, but the society itself, collected money. For example, we collected millions of euros to support. For example, we bought a few Bayraktars to Ukraine, well, a year ago, when it was maybe more helpful. We collected also 8.5 million for this personal anti-drone systems to your soldiers, and etc. So I see the good examples that society unifies, society understands and also a lot of people produce their flats and and houses for the refugees of the war, they as a shelter for them to stay. So I think it united us and let us grow as a normal democratic society. In the context of international relations, so I think it also like crystallized all the international arena, and you see who can you be friends with now. Like looking at Hungary, and now you see, well, they are a little bit more pro-Putin, and then you find out who are your friends in this field. Okay, more questions?
There is more questions, and thank you very much again for so open answers, and also like these rising questions about Hungary and this extremely strange crisis which was created on the border with the Syrian people. It's really something which was never happening before in Europe, and we see that the different like challenges which comes, it's really needs to be for countries united. It's not a problem of one country, it's the problem of international society. And for the support of the people, I want to just a small remark. Last year I've been to Vilnius, and I was extremely surprised with the numbers of Ukrainian flags which was everywhere. It was more Ukrainian flags, I think I even see in Kiev, and that was what I said coming back, and it really gives, this feeling that you are not alone and there is a hope. And also when I see the number, like millions, which the Lithuanian people, ordinary people can collect for Ukraine, and the number of these millions is 2 or 3 times bigger than the number of people in the country, bigger than population. This is really impressive. I see that, I know that we're limited in time, but I think we still have time for one question and for gender balance. I would like to give floor to our students, Mikhailo, and to ask the question. Mikhailo, please.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this meeting and this interesting information. And I want to ask you what the Lithuanian government doing to inform Lithuanian society about war in Ukraine and Ukrainian needs, and what perspectives you see about supporting of Ukraine.
Well, the question about communication, how do we explain the society, and how the government explains the society and informs the society, as I understood. So, well, our society is a democratic one, and we watch news, of the global news. We watch CNN, we watch BBC, and our media also shows the freely the objective information. But what we have did on the other side, we cut all the Russian propaganda, because Russia is not a democratic one, and their media is non-democratic one, and it's only a propaganda tool. So we have been, by the way, to the context, we have been fighting for decades with the Russian propaganda, but we could not like switch off completely everything. But step by step, we adopted few laws, for example, making some percentage of Russian language retranslation, how many channels can be retranslated, which are in Russian language, and etc., etc. So we tried to push the propaganda level down. And now, when the full-scale invasion began, we just cut all the Russian TVs out of ether, and now we have zero, only, well, in social media, in internet, which is much harder to control. But these channels, TV channels, were switched off. So I think this is the most important thing that we made. And the rest of the society watches the global channels, watches the Lithuanian channels, which are quite of high level media, and I think they're producing objective information, what is going on in Europe. And of course, it's a pity that that the scope went from Ukraine to Israel when the attack of Hamas happened in Israel. And I, every day I watch, for example, in the morning, I watch BBC News. And every day it was like something about Ukraine, something about war in Ukraine every day. But after the conflict in Israel happened, for 2 weeks, zero news about Ukraine. I was astonished how the scope of the world went off the topic of Ukraine. So one of our tasks as Lithuanians is to bring back the question of Ukraine back on table, if there is none. Okay, please, more questions. Maybe we have a few minutes.
Oh, perfectly. I just wanted to ask if it's possible for us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for these answers. And, you know, like really this it's a problem with the war which existed in the world and how the media influence our attention. Yeah, so they are just cutting information, and then for some society, it's had a feeling that, okay, it's already stopped. Yeah, we are proceeding our life. So this is also very important national part of policy, this information policy. And now we see Russia with its propaganda, they are really advanced in it. So the society is totally brainwashed, and we see the results for now, unfortunately. Okay, and now I see also hand. So Polina, please, your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for your speech. Also, I wanted to ask that what assistance is Lithuania ready to provide to Ukraine for reconstructions, and maybe which projects have already been developed, and what are the problems facing Ukraine on this path? Thank you very much.
You mean European integration?
Yeah.
Question? Okay. Okay. So as you see, we always in favor in any European platforms of Ukraine's path to European Union as fast as possible. So our diplomats and our politicians on the international level are working in order to bring Ukraine to European Union as fast as possible. And on our bilateral level, as Lithuania support to Ukraine, as I mentioned, not talking about governmental contacts, which do exist. For example, well, parliamentary level. I even was asked by your colleagues to send some examples of our laws, which we have adopted before, to translate it into English and to send to you as an example of the laws that we have in Lithuania, because we are in the European Union, and some legislation should be brought to Lithuania's legislation system. So we could be as a good example, because I think we share the same past. We were together in the Soviet Union. We went out together, and probably our legislation system is more similar than, for example, ours and France or Belgium or whatever. So as an example, our laws for you should be more helpful. So you just can copy them if you want. So as an example, I have sent few times. And another thing that I mentioned is local experience. So we've already made new contacts of some cities from Ukraine and Lithuania to become cities partners and to come here. A few delegations already came to Lithuania from Ukraine, and vice versa, from Lithuania to Ukraine. They exchange experiences in various fields. For example, energetics. Or transport of the cities, tourism, well, recycling, and etc. All the necessary things which are useful on the local level. So we can share our experience.
Thank you very much for your answer. I know that we are very limited with the time, so it was the last question from the audience, even we have more in the chat. But now I want to invite the deputy head of our institute for the closing remark of these events. And thank you very much for this meeting. Svetlana,
Thank you.
Дякую, пані Євгенія, за можливість.
Thank you, Evgenia, for the opportunity to raise the question. Last question. I want to start with expressing words of gratitude. Thank you. My husband, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, is a soldier in the 3rd Special Forces Battalion, and most things that they receive, cars and other equipment that they use in fighting, are marked with flags of Ukraine and Lithuania. It's very the same sign that you have on your clothing today, on all of the cars that they use, and it's dozens of cars near Bakhmut, and they are now in east of Ukraine. So I'd like to express the words of gratitude as a wife of a soldier. And in this context, a question I'd like to ask that in the beginning of April, you had a visit in Чернігів about common production of military equipment. You had some preliminary discussions. Is it going to happen quickly, or bureaucratic and financial challenges will hinder this? So how quickly is it possible to launch these projects of common military equipment production?
Well, I'm sorry, but I was trying to listen to Ukrainian and without an interpretation, so maybe I misunderstood the question. Can you please repeat once again the question?
Так, ми знаємо,
Yes.
що на початку квітня у вас
We know that in the beginning of April, you had a visit to Kyiv, and there were preliminary agreements about joint production of military equipment between Lithuania and Ukraine. And the question is, how quickly this can be realized? Is it possible to do it really quick, or there will be financial and bureaucratic challenges? Thank you.
Oh, about our military production. Okay, thank you very much. By the way, it is the topic question for, I don't know, maybe a year in Lithuania. It's about our military industry, that we need to produce the guns ourselves. And it reminds me a little bit about Mr. Churchill's efforts during the World War II, when the Hitler attacked the world, and he tried to persuade the world that we need to produce much more weaponry, and now the Europe is under this process. The Europe itself understands that we need to produce more guns, more weapons, more artillery shells at least. And in Lithuania, we had not much of military production before, but now we have an association of military industry, which is quite active, and I brought a few colleagues with myself to Ukraine a few weeks ago, and we talked to your business, and we talked to military, and we are trying to find niches. As I mentioned, the probably most perspective niches is the high tech, because we have high-tech companies in Lithuania, and we are already producing drones. We are already producing intelligence wing-type drones, but we also are producing FPV drones, kamikazes, small and cheap drones, which quadrocopters, and we also are testing them on the battlefield. We have this connection with the battlefield of Ukraine, and we develop these projects according to the needs. So the process is on already. The process is on, and now we are. By the way, yesterday we adopted a new law which makes easier for important for national security companies to invest easier in Lithuania. So one of the biggest examples is Rheinmetall fabric, which will produce 155 millimeter artillery shells in Lithuania. So in few years we will have the artillery shells manufacturing in Lithuania, which were no before, and so one big step forward. and talking about drone productions, we are looking forward for cooperation with your manufacturers to maybe in some specific niches to produce Lithuanian decisions and our products also. So we are working in this particular field moving forward.
Thank you very much for your answers. I see that we already took a lot of your time and you need to leave. The last, I ask all the participants to switch on the cameras, and we will have like a family photo about this meeting and to remember it for a
That
long
would be
time.
great.
Yeah, just for the second. I will switch to Ukrainian channel also to say it in
Зараз
Ukrainian.
я скажу це українською також.
Будь ласка, включіть всі камери. Зараз ми зробимо невеличке сімейне фото на згадку про таку зустріч. І можна ставити реакції. Я думаю, що нашому гостю буде це також приємно. So now, please, I ask everybody to make screenshots so everybody would have photos, and we will also have it for the future. Thank you very much for the meeting, and smile. Thanks a lot. I think we've done.
Thank you very much.
It was great. Thank you very much. Yeah, we are wishing you
you.
all the best in all your activities, and especially grateful for support Ukraine. Слава Україні!
Thank you. All the best. Слава Україні. Героям слава.
Героям слава!
Героям слава.
До побачення.